Hello, Nate.
Hello, Greg. Hello, everybody out there on the internet. It's time again
Yes.
for our bi-weekly What's This Bird Live program. How are things where you are, Greg?
Good. Good, good, good. How about you? Sorry, I'm dealing with just a little bit of technical stuff here, but it looks like everything's doing okay. Things are good. Migration's picking up. We just had a great weekend and early week of migrants here in Chicago. And as you and I were just talking before we hit the go button, boy, rarities are really picking up,
It's
especially
rarity
Canada.
season.
It
Yeah,
is.
Canada's been hot lately with rare birds. Just in the last 3 days, there have been first state record broad-billed hummingbird from Saskatchewan. First province record broad-billed hummingbird from Saskatchewan. First province surf bird from Ontario, which is wild.
Yep.
Funny
Second for
story.
Lake Erie, which is wild.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say the first record for Lake Erie was directly across Lake Erie, like straight south from Long Point,
Yep.
at Presque Isle in Erie, Pennsylvania, and that was like in 1979 or something like that. So we finally get a second one. It took them 40 years, 45 years to go, 50 miles north. Exactly 50 miles north,
Yeah.
and just now a yellow green vireo in Nova Scotia, which is first provincial record, and a bird that I think probably shows up on the East Coast more than people realize, but it looks very
Yeah.
similar to red-eyed vireo, which are very very common this time of year and through October as migrants. But yeah, good stuff. Lots of neat things around.
Yeah. And hey, for you guys out there watching, what we do here is we pull pictures from our What's This
We don't
Bird
just talk
group
about first provincial records.
on and talk about first provincial records. From our What's This Bird group on Facebook and on our own ABA community. That's aba.org/community. And, I go through and every couple of weeks pick out some that I think are going to be fun to talk about, think people want to dig into.
Seasonally appropriate bird identification questions.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Kind of like last week. Right now it's all about passerines and especially warblers. Although
Mhm.
sparrows are starting to show up. In another week or two, it's going to switch to hawks and other things flying overhead as the passerines start to thin out. At least the insect-eating passerines,
And more sparrows will
and
start
more
coming through into October,
exactly.
at least where I live. They're probably
Um,
already moving in the north. And then
and
ducks,
then the
ducks and
ducks.
gulls.
Yeah. And gull season's your favorite.
Love it, love it. Yeah.
But yeah, so we also watch the comments on YouTube and Facebook. So if you've got something you want to say, you want to shout out, or got a question, comment, just drop it there. We're watching, and we'll do our best to get to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Some quick shout outs for Buddy Campbell from Beaufort, South Carolina, Tracy from San Diego, Mark Swellstead from Columbus, Eric Yanyo made it back from birding. Good on you. Kitty Crooks, Julie Wells, Andrew Cambauer, George Munez, our old friend George Munez. Hey,
Hey,
George, how you
George.
doing? All right, Davio, Wellbirds, ArtStation, and the boss, Wayne Klockner. He's watching. Everybody look sharp.
All right, wait. Let
Um,
me adjust my collar here.
no,
There we
right?
go.
Should have worn a
Sit up a little
suit.
straighter.
Should have worn a suit.
Wearing my brand new ABA hat here.
Yeah, look at that. Good looking stuff.
Yeah, I like it.
Reminds me, Greg, that we're still using the old ABA logo on the holding screen when we get ready for this. You'll have to change it to
Yeah,
the
I
new
that
one
is
at
that
some
is one
point.
of
I
the
know that's on the
things.
long list of
It's
things
on the
that you
long
need
list
to
of
do.
things. Yeah, but that'll be updated fairly soon. Um, but yeah, we got Marion, Daphne, and Rose and Len in Facebook in the comments. So again, you guys. Marion says hawks are moving right now in Southwest Virginia. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
they've
Broadwing season.
started. They've started. Broadwings are moving,
Yeah.
and osprey are moving.
hmm
But another couple of weeks is when the spigot's really going to open.
Common nighthawks, not strictly
Nighthawks
speaking
are pretty.
hawks, but they are moving right now, and
Common
pretty
nighthawks
good
are pretty
numbers. I'm
much
seeing them
done
every day.
here.
Oh, really? Yeah, I've been seeing them. There, two or three of them going over every night. I'm sure if you run out and find them,
And
they're moving south
I don't know about
in
I don't
numbers.
know about where you are, and that's the collective you are to
hmm
everybody out there. But red-breasted nuthatches seem to be on the move. This
Looks
seems
like
to
the
be a year
season for
for
that.
them.
Yep, that's what I've heard as well. Yeah, from places not all that far north from where I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, folks. As Greg said, we're always watching the comments. We're always excited to tackle any bird issues that pop up. So if you have any questions about really anything bird related, we'll be happy to take a crack at it as we work through this list of birds that these photos that Greg has procured for us for this week.
Yeah. So yeah, like I said, this week is going to be pretty much all about passerines once again, and pretty much all about warblers. Not entirely, not entirely. But before we jump into that, maybe a little bit of housekeeping here. Is this going to work? I know that the Stream Deck isn't
accurately predict it.
The Stream Deck's not working, so this will be interesting. Yeah. Nate, what's going on with this month in birding on the podcast?
Every Thursday, the last Thursday of the month, I bring together a small panel to talk about some of the birding news, birding and conservation, and birding science that comes along over the course of the month. And that's this month in birding. And this time it's Frank Izagiri, my ABA colleague and friend, and Andres Jimenez from Nature Ontario, and Sarah Swanson from out west in Portland, Oregon. Great conversation. We talk about what did we talk about? I just edited it this week. What did we talk about? We talked about cowbirds. We talked about the barred owl calls. We talked about our favorite birding conservation success stories. It's a fun conversation with fun people. Excited to share it with all those podcast listeners out there.
So, what's your favorite conservation success story?
Well, you'd have to listen to. I'll tell you. I talk about it in the I talk about it in the podcast, but I think Cahao, I think Bermuda petrel is my favorite. It's a Lazarus species. It was a species that was, I say in the podcast, it was thought to be extinct for 100 years. It's actually thought to be extinct for 400 years. The last one is documented in the 1600s. They thought it disappeared. And then in the 1960s, one was found as a window kill on a lighthouse in Bermuda. And they sent it to the American Museum, and they said, "Hey, this is a Bermuda petrel." And a fellow named David Wingate was the kind of main character in finding where these birds were nesting in one of the harbors on the north side of on a small island in the middle of the harbor on the north side of the island of Bermuda. Found the birds, and they've been increasing ever since. It's a fantastic conservation success story, pretty much made possible by one person. David Wingate, which is all the more phenomenal.
Yeah, my favorite is completely at the opposite end of things from that, and it's and I don't those of us who have been birding a while have witnessed several really phenomenal conservation success stories in the ABA area. I think the most celebrated, of course, is the bald eagle. But also osprey and double-crested cormorant. But
American white pelican.
Well, and that's where I was going. American white pelican is where I was going. That's fine. That's fine because we're thinking the same thing. I mean, the way that American white pelican population has absolutely exploded in my lifetime is just, it's unreal. It's unreal. I mean, I just saw some pictures yesterday from a lake downstate where it's like to the horizon, just covered with American white pelicans, and just
we get a bunch of them in the winters down here too.
Yeah. It's just absolutely amazing. Take out DDT and some other things.
Asian carp.
Yeah. Well, and that's nobody's really done a study, but I really think that part of the reason for that bird's expansion, where and when it did move, is due to Asian carp in the Mississippi, and at least it's a strong factor.
Bluebirds.
So, and Marion says bluebirds, yeah.
Bluebirds. Eastern
and
bluebird is a great one too.
Eastern
Andres
bluebird is a great one.
here I'm going to go spoiling the entire conversation. But Andres's was wood duck, which is another great one that a lot of people don't even realize was a bird that was desperately low mid-century, and came back with an effort to put up nesting boxes and protect those wetlands, and they've come back storming to the point where they're a reasonably common urban bird across, or
Oh,
suburban bird,
absolutely. I
suburban slash urban bird across much of the continent these days, at least
in
or
the
two-thirds at least.
in the cabinet here to my right, I've got a little book that's the William Druth study of birds of Lincoln Park, Chicago in the
Hmm.
1920s, and wood duck was one of the rarest things he found,
Yeah.
and was there was like one or two wood ducks over a 20-year period or whatever he
Yeah.
did. Now as you said, they're common. Um, so anyway, I think maybe we're gonna jump into some birds
Let's do
here.
the birds. Let's talk
Let's do
about
the
birds.
birds.
We've vamped enough.
Okay, so like I said, it's that time of year, and the woods and parks and backyards are full of little things that look like this.
Yeah, it's catch-all right here. We've got a apparently very small bird sitting on the twig. We can kind of get an idea of the size here. Um, Pretty featureless. Some things that stand out are kind of all over yellow, yellowish green,
Yep.
olive. Uh, Real nice eye ring on this bird, Greg.
Yeah.
No wing bars to speak of. Got some things that you might
Eh,
call wing bars, but I don't
yeah,
know that
some
I'd say those
fringy
are wing
fringe
bars.
going
Some
on there.
fringing. Yeah, right. Yeah, where does fringe become a wing bar? That's a discussion
Yeah.
for another time. But it's got dark legs, dark little spindly legs. It's got a relatively narrow bill. This is definitely a warbler, Greg, but we
I
have a
would
lot of yellowish warblers in the ABA area, and a lot of kind of featureless yellowish warblers in
feature
the ABA area these days.
featureless yellowish warblers that show some kind of an eye ring or another. Um, and yeah, so we will I will take a look at those
And a couple other birds that are not
and
warblers
a
that
couple
look
other
similar
birds.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yes.
yeah. So here's our kind of featureless yellowish birds with eye rings, and warblers. Actually, these are all warblers, as you can
Oh,
see,
warblers. Yeah.
and our target bird there in the lower left. Um, and yeah, and this is a fairly common bird, sometimes abundant bird that can be really hard to identify in fall and winter plumage, especially first year.
Yeah, I think
As
we can.
most as
No,
all of
sorry.
the birds here pictured are, these are all pretty much first year birds, which are often the most confusing.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I think we can just kind of focusing first on the birds that we can eliminate more quickly here. I'm going to look at the birds on the left side of this composite that you've created, Greg.
Yep.
And most of those have some gray, something that is like very, well, we can all agree is gray. Gray can be one of those terms that can look kind of tannish or olivish or brownish or blackish or whatever, depending on the bird. But for the
Yeah.
most part, these birds have some sort of really honest to goodness gray on the head, on the body, or even sort of brownish. Nashville warbler almost always has a gray head, even though it has a nice big yellow eye ring. And it does tend to have a little more white on the underparts, although that can be sort of difficult to see depending on
Well,
the angle that you see that bird.
that
So I think
Nashville
that one we
warbler,
can rule out quickly.
yeah, and the bill shape too, just
Mm-hmm.
doesn't really fit. Nashville has that kind of spiky
Kind
bill,
of
but
thin.
the the picture here, in the comp on the top left there, the Nashville warbler, kind of shows something that you've pointed out, when a Nashville warbler is overhead, that
Mm-hmm.
it shows that yellow throat, yellow chest, kind of a whitish band across the belly, and then sometimes a yellowish under tail coverts like this bird
Yeah.
does, and it's that's kind of unique.
Yeah, yellow, white, yellow. Yeah, it looks like it's got some white pants or whatever. You can't always see that, but I think you can see that all most of the time. Enough that it's a good field mark for Nashville warbler if you get a good look at it.
Yeah,
So I think we can kind of rule out Nashville warbler for those two reasons. The two kind of heavy ground warblers, Connecticut and Morning, very similar. Kind of, they like to stay close to the ground. They're kind of heavy bodied and sort of interestingly and uniquely shaped. A lot of the
Yep.
times they have a gray or a brown on the head or on the back. Um, this bird doesn't seem to have it sort of yellow all over, yellow,
And,
olive green all over.
and
Not
in
what I'm
breeding
looking at when I'm
plumage,
looking at morning.
these birds are hooded. They have gray,
Hmm.
blackish, gray hoods with blackish on them in the chest, in the males, and females without the blackish. Um, and the morning, for our intents and purposes here, could be morning slash McGillivray's. I mean, in Texas, McGillivray's, I don't know exactly where Macaulay is, but you could get McGillivray's. But that's a topic for another discussion, separating those two. Um, and you can see that there's some coloration across the chest.
Hmm.
Uh, and our bird in the corner there has a little bit of that. Um, and it's kind of got the pale throat and a little bit of something on the chest, but the stuff on the chest looks kind of streaky. But it's also got that fringing that we talked about
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
on the wing
Not a wing
panel.
bar, but not plain either.
One other thing that's going on here is, as you said, the big uh, lower in the forest warblers here, the Connecticut and Morning. Connecticut, as I've said before, often reminds me of a thrush. It tends to walk,
Yeah.
and both of those birds have really big feet. The bird in question here has kind of delicate feet compared to those two. Um, which takes us to common yellowthroat and kind of gives away the game.
Common yellowthroat and yellow warbler are the two that would be the most likely for this bird to the game.
Yeah, and the common yellowthroat, like Morning in Connecticut, has big, strong pink feet, and our bird does not. So that kind of gives it away. But yellow warbler, which is what this bird um, is really kind of a shapeshifter in the fall. It's funny, when we were talking about this comp, Nate brought up, why didn't you put female painted bunting in there? And that's a good,
In the southeast, that's one we think about. They can be a similar sort of greenish yellow.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And but yellow warbler, depending on where you are, it's found across the ABA area, and in the east it tends to look a bit more like the bird in the upper right, and as you go further west, it gets grayer, um, and can be really confusing. And I like to say about yellow warblers is that it's almost always, and again, this is the east. I'm showing my eastern bias. My opportunities to bird out west have been very limited in recent years, but they always tend to show some bright yellow edging in the wings, in the primaries and secondaries, and in the tail, at the base of the tail, and it's usually pretty noticeable. But as you go further west, that becomes more and more unreliable. And the same thing with common yellowthroat. Common yellowthroat can be very green and yellow, or it can be very gray. But you'll notice how the yellowthroat always has that kind of sharply demarked throat, whether it's white
Yeah,
or yellowish.
exactly.
It's always got that sharply demarked throat. Whereas yellow warbler tends to be more like a yellow-bellied flycatcher, where it just
Yeah,
kind of
sort
blends
all
in.
the way through. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah,
of course,
absolutely. And while common yellowthroat can have an eye ring, it generally isn't as strong or as complete as that on a yellow
yeah,
warbler. I honestly, when you look at this bird, the thing that stands out to me for the most part is that patterning on the wings, Greg, because I
yeah,
always think of common yellowthroat as being an exceptionally plain bird.
yeah.
Not even any pattern on the wings, very little. Sometimes a hint of an eye ring, as in the birds that we see here. Even that looks a little bit broken. It's a very different shaped bird too. Common yellowthroat is a big, kind of lanky bird,
It's
very
got a long
with
tail.
big feet. Yeah, and the yellow warbler is just sort of like a classic every warbler. It's compact, it's small. They're found in similar places, yellow warbler and common yellowthroat this time of year a lot of times.
Yeah,
But
they are.
it's probably our most uniformly yellow warbler, which was what makes the name so appropriate, especially
Yeah,
even for these younger birds that can be a little more olive. But it's sort of very uniform all across. Whereas yellow warbler, as you said, Greg, almost always has that yellow concentrated right on the throat. And
yellow
it kind of
throat.
breaks away
Yeah,
pretty. Yeah, yellow throat. I'm sorry,
that's
concentrated right on the yellow throat, and it kind of breaks away pretty quickly after that into a more of kind of a beige or a khaki or olive color.
Yeah, and yeah, as I mentioned just a moment ago, common yellowthroat has a longer tail, and the tail feathers tend to be pointed, especially in first year birds. Um, and it behaves very differently. It's a skulker. It rarely gets up high in the trees. I've seen yellow warblers in the treetops, and I've seen yellow warblers on the ground. You rarely see a common yellowthroat in the treetops.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Now we're going to Albuquerque, New Mexico. We're going to get out west a fair bit today. And I like this one a lot because there's some people who are familiar with it are going to be like, aha! But others like, what the heck is that?
Yeah, so when you showed me this photo before we got started, Greg, I was less able to tell you what this bird was, but and more able to tell you what it's not.
Yeah.
Because it's simply a bird that I don't see a lot, and it doesn't look. I don't think I've ever seen. I think this might be an outstanding lifer for me. But in any case, you see a bird like this with a relatively thick conical bill. It's streaky all over. It's got a little bit of pattern on the face. You think immediately New World sparrows, the emberizids,
Yep.
and it's open country bird. Birds to think about that sort of have this fine streaky look. Savannah sparrow is the first one that you're going to have to deal with. What are some other ones? Song
Well,
sparrow. It's way too
well,
fine streaky
there's
for song
Henslow's
sparrow.
and
Henslow's, all the
Henslow's, a
kind of
young
weirdo
grasshopper
sparrows.
sparrow,
Yeah.
which have a streaky chest, or Baird's and Vesper. I think we can say because of the face pattern, this is not, and the bill size. This is not a Savannah sparrow.
No,
And
which is
I,
why
I
it
didn't
does
even
not
throw it.
look like a savannah.
I didn't even throw it in the comp because it just doesn't. Nothing about this bird says Savannah sparrow to me.
Yeah, fair.
And
Well, the
it's
kind of streaking all over and
oh
the
I,
vague pattern
you're
makes you think Savannah sparrow, but it's also like Savannah sparrow, but this is clearly not a Savannah sparrow. What is it, sort of thing?
yeah. I mean,
It's a brain bird for me.
yeah the face pattern with the malar and the supercilium of Savannah song and Lincoln's are all very similar. And this bird just isn't any of that. And for Savannah sparrow, except for some of the very, large-billed subspecies, which this wouldn't be in New Mexico, and it just doesn't look like it at all. This bird's bill is just too big for a middle-of-the-continent Savannah sparrow. So why don't we take a look at the comp and see what we got here. So I think the first place we can go, and the thing that stood out for me is the sort of double or triple malar. We've got that whitish mustache stripe that's bordered on both sides by brown, and that's something that grasshopper sparrow never shows. And even though grasshopper
Yes,
sparrow's got that
very
big
plain
bill.
face.
It's got the big bill and the
Flat
little
head.
streaking on it and everything else. It doesn't have that facial pattern. So I think we can take grasshopper sparrow out of the mix. This bird also doesn't really show a strong eye ring. And again, the face pattern, like on a Vesper sparrow, the face pattern really, the eye ring really jumps out at you in pretty much every plumage. And I've seen some pretty big billed Vesper sparrows, but this bird still looks too big for a Vesper. And so we get down to a tough pair, Baird's and Henslow's. And that's something that we always look for. We always look for vagrant Baird sparrows in the Midwest, and they just don't show up.
Yeah, it's not a common vagrant, if I recall correctly.
No, they go southwest from where they breed. Henslow sparrows kind of show up all over the place. And that's another great conservation story. Boy, that's another one of my favorites, living here in the land of Henslow sparrows. Since prairie restoration has really done wonders for Henslows and dickcissel.
Yeah, they've declined quite a bit in the southeast.
Yeah, so
I would think Henslow sparrow would be a very, very good bird in New Mexico. as well.
I think it would be a pretty good bird. I can check the range map real quick. That's the one thing I didn't do when I was putting this together. But what do you see in the differences here?
Range mostly.
Yeah, it
Hensel
would be a
Sparrow to
very
me.
good bird. It would
Hensel
be a very
Sparrow
good bird in
is
New Mexico.
I don't know that this photo shows it all that well, but Hensel Sparrow almost has this really kind of subtle greenish tint to it. At least the ones down here when I see in the southeast when we get them,
Yeah,
because they're in these kind of wet meadows, and they have this kind of, it's really subtle. You know, LeConte's and Hensel's are the two kind of marshy sparrows that we have, kind of meadow sparrows, and LeConte's is very orangey, and Hensel Sparrow is a little bit green. This bird doesn't have any of that, and I think that maybe that part of it is because of the background. Maybe it is because it's clearly in an arid or a drier place. But you know, Baird Sparrow seems like the obvious choice here. It is a bird that if you are outside of its common range, it's not a bird that you tend to encounter all that often. Because as you say, Greg, it is not a common vagrant.
no,
It's typically people travel to the Dakotas where singing Baird sparrows are to find them, and then they will winter with a lot of kind of dry country sparrowy birds, longspurs and all that.
New Mexico and Arizona.
New Mexico and Arizona, yeah, exactly. So if you are outside those places, it's not a bird you're inclined to encounter all that often.
Now the Hensel Sparrow here in the comp I photographed at a prairie outside Chicago a few years ago, and that bird, it did not show any of the green that you talk about.
Maybe it's a southeast thing because we
no
do have
no
a
no
kind
the
of an
adults,
isolated population of the Hensels.
but the adults have very greenish heads. But in the fall,
I always associate with them.
They tend to lose it, and like Hensels in the fall and a young LeConte's can be surprisingly. And I should have I've got a picture of a young LeConte sparrow that I took that it shows none of the coloration that you expect of a LeConte sparrow. But a couple of things to note here is Hensel Sparrow in breeding plumage, like you said, Nate, it has that greenish olive color, really concentrated on the nape. And it has an unstreaked, like a unstreaked green cowl. Baird Sparrow has a finely streaked nape, and that goes for all of the three other birds on the comp. And the nape is sometimes an overlooked place to identify sparrows. It's a lot of sparrows have either a streaked or an unstreaked nape, and that's not paid attention to as much as some of the other field marks. But one thing that you can notice on the bird in the upper left here, the bird in question, is that sort of unique ochraceous orange, almost getting into LeConte sparrow territory face. It's got that. It's as unique as a Henslow sparrow is. It's just different in terms of the facial coloration.
It's interesting that each of the members of this genus, this is Ammodramus genus, really cool group of marshy, reedy sparrows, has sort of a different color or a pattern on the nape. When I think of LeConte sparrow, it's almost got that like lavender almost.
It's purple, yeah.
And Henslow's is green, and Baird's is like finely streaked, and Grasshopper has still.
It's got a
some changing around,
but Grasshopper has a purplish streaked nape as well.
Yeah.
And it's not quite as it's different from LeConte's, but it's Baird Sparrow in breeding plumage is a beautiful bird. Grasshopper.
Really,
all of them are
really
subtly beautiful.
Patterned, yeah.
But the back pattern on a Grasshopper sparrow is really quite intricate and beautiful. And Len Kopka says, despite living in Ohio for 43 years and South Carolina for 31, Henslow still remains a nemesis.
Henslow's is a tough one in the Southeast.
They can be
very scattered.
They can be tough east of Lake Michigan. But yeah, come visit the prairies in northern Illinois and you'll find plenty of them.
Yeah, I got my first in Missouri, where I grew up. There's a few spots in west central Missouri where you can find them. But not an easy bird. Like you do have to kind of work for it. not easy to notice when they're singing as well. They've got such an easily passed off song.
Yeah, the song is something that once you hear it and once you're familiar with it, you can pick it out anywhere at any time.
Yeah.
It's remarkably complex for sounding like somebody just going slick.
Right, if you're a sparrow, yeah.
If you're a sparrow, if you slow it down and listen to it a little, it's like really complex. All right, we're going to go to Wyoming for this large black bird. This one caused a little bit of discussion on our What's This Bird group on Facebook.
I could see it. I think the angle is not doing us any favors here. The foreshortening of the bill is kind of giving an impression of something that perhaps isn't there. When we talk about large black birds, it's not a vulture because it's got a feathered head.
Yeah.
Crows and ravens are the ones to think about. There are a few very dark raptors as well. Rough-legged hawk. Swainson's hawk is more of a kind of a chestnut. The dark.
Yeah, it's kind of a chestnutty.
Harlan's red tail. It's very dark hawk. So all of those are kind of in play. I suppose,
very dark phase broadwing, which is really quite uncommon.
Would be very rare in Wyoming. So it's got big kind of shiny plumage around on the breast. That does not strike me as a hawk thing. It's got very long wings. I think I know with this bird, it's hawk sized for sure.
It is. Yeah. I mean, it's got, it's a couple of things going on here. It's just kind of big and shaggy all over. And that word shaggy is often used to describe what this bird is. And as you pointed out, the long wings and the long tail give it a very unique look. But the person who posted this felt rather strongly that it was a buteo, one of our buteo hawks like red-tailed or rough-legged, because of that hooked bill. And as you said, I think the foreshortening, the way that the bird is looking at the camera, plus the fact that the bill appears to be overgrown, is kind of throwing this off. So really what we're looking here as either an American crow or a common raven. And this is a common conundrum for birders is it a crow or is it a raven?
Yeah, I would say the fact that she thought it was a hawk means it's a raven. Because ravens they're big. Like they are buteo sized. I've seen some in the mountains here in the southern Appalachians that look, when they're soaring, as big as a red-tailed hawk, which is not a small bird at all. They're hefty, they're heavy. The iridescence there concentrated on the front of the chest looks pretty good for it. The kind of nostril, the feathers that kind of go out and cover the nostrils, you can see that in this bird. It's like hairy and downy woodpecker, right? If you're questioning it, if you're not sure, it's a crow. If you see it, when you see a raven, it's almost hard to mistake it for any other corvid. You would probably mistake it for a hawk more than anything else.
Absolutely. I mean, when they're in the air, and I should have put a couple of silhouettes or flying birds in here so we could talk about that.
Wings,
but
long wings.
They're big, long wings, long triangular sort of shape, tapered tail, wedge shape. That's the word I was looking for. But in the comp here, look at the wing length, and this crow is kind of compressed, and when they do that, their wings, and this goes for gulls, this goes for hawks, their wings, that's when their wings appear the longest. But even in that shape, look in that position, look at how long the raven's wings are
all the way
by comparison. It's a very differently structured bird. But another very clean giveaway is the throat. And it has those shaggy, very long lanceolate throat feathers that it can puff up, and when they start talking, their throats really, the throat feathers really start moving around like that. And so we can clearly see all of that on this very good photos. One of the better photos that we get to work with.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a common raven, And then also, if the bird started talking, you'd be able to know what it is right away because they don't sound at all alike.
Yeah, another thing to consider when we're looking at red-tailed hawk is that in most of our raptors, maybe all of our raptors, the bare parts are yellow. So the
Yes,
feet would be bright yellow. So we would see that bird that if this bird was perched, and also the cere of those birds,
yes.
kind of the base of the bill, would be yellow as well.
The the
With this bird,
nasal
it's all
tuft
kind of
would be
gray.
replaced by yellow
Yeah,
skin,
by yellow
basically.
skin. Yeah, and it's just the way they sit too. Most buteos, this isn't hard and fast, and they can certainly sit in lots of different ways. But the photo that you have here has it's kind of a classic buteo impression, at least to my eyes. They're very chesty, like the broadest
Yep.
part of the sitting bird is like across the front of across the chest, whereas in a common raven they're kind of more columnar, almost more like an accipiter when they sit, but different from that too for other
Yeah,
reasons.
and
But it's a
we have
different shape. It's a different way to sit.
and we
Way
have a
that they
couple of
sit. What is wrong with me?
we have a couple of very long-winged buteos,
Mm-hmm.
Swainson's and Swainson's
Ferruginous.
rough-legged and ferruginous.
Mm-hmm.
And they can, the wingtips can go to or even beyond the tail, and depending on how they're holding their wings. But most buteos, like red tail, red shoulder, so on, the wingtips fall far short of the tail, and most of the time that also holds true for American crow. So basically, if you're looking at the bird and you can see the wingtips that do not reach the tip of the tail, that's a very good way to tell crow from raven a lot of the time. But again, as you said, birds move around, so nothing is
Yeah,
hard and
and
fast.
ravens especially. Raven is a bird whose range has been expanding quite a bit in the last couple
Yeah,
decades. So people are turning them. People are seeing them in a lot of different places. Wyoming always all across the American West, always very classic spot to find ravens. They're very common everywhere. But in the east, they are getting more. They are spreading out into different places. They become more common in the southeast where I live, in the away from the mountains. There are spots in my home county where we've got ravens pretty regularly. I'm pretty sure they're nesting somewhere nearby because I see them a lot. And yeah, and the one place that they don't tend to be is like, funnily enough, like the middle of the continent, kind of the Great Plains between the
yeah,
Rocky Mountains and the Mississippi River. Still is not a lot of raven records there, but I feel like
yeah,
that's only a matter of time.
yeah. And it's interesting. They have been in recent years moving down the east shore of Lake Michigan,
Yeah.
um, and coming around the south end of Lake Michigan into the Indiana Dunes area,
Mm,
and starting to show up very rarely in the Chicago area.
mm.
And I think in the next 5 to 10 years, that's a bird we'll probably be seeing more of in Indiana and Illinois. I mean, they're fairly easy to get in large parts of Wisconsin and Michigan.
Yeah.
So we're just kind of waiting for that to happen.
Yeah, they're smart. They are they will eat just about anything, and they
Yeah.
can figure out how to get just about anything. So they are a bird that is poised to spread.
And
Um,
across the southern part of Lake Michigan, there's a lot of woodland and there's a lot of high tension towers for them to nest on.
yeah, they like quarries too. There's a
Yeah.
couple of them in the Piedmont of North Carolina where they nest in rock quarries, old rock quarries,
Yeah.
or they're suspected to nest there, I should say.
Oh, look, another little yellow bird.
Another little yellow bird. The bill on this one is very different from the bill on our yellow warbler from earlier in this
Yeah.
program. Very broad, thick, and even with these reasonably poor quality photos, we can see that it has a bit of a hook at the tip of
Yeah.
it. So that's interesting. This is kind of a thicker bird, bigger head, bigger body, and much larger bill than the
Yeah.
warblers we've been looking at. So not a warbler.
And we got two pictures here of the same bird moving its head around so that we can see that the coloration around the eyes, that is for real. That's not
Hmm.
artifacting. And we can also see what
Broken
look
eye
like
ring.
some wing bars there. And there's a couple of there's
Maybe.
something going
Yeah.
on the wings there, and
Is it, or is
it's
that like a breast feather that's kind of fluffed off
no, it's
onto the
kind
side?
of showing
All
up
right.
the same. The bird's kind of moving its head around, the body shifts a little bit,
Okay.
I'm thinking we're seeing wing bars there, but it's also got kind of big gray feet too,
Yeah, for
which is a
sure.
clue. Aha, a clue.
Yeah, so
Um,
big hooked bill, big gray feet. That says Vireo.
I think so.
Pretty much. So, Vireo, long thought to be closely related to the warblers sitting right next to him in a lot of old field guides. Turns out they're
Yep.
not. They're actually more
Nope.
closely related to shrikes,
Yep.
as we can see based on that unique bill. But still, there are some large-billed warblers to think about, namely pine warbler, our old friend that we always throw into these sort of situations because they can look like a lot of different birds. But I think the bill pretty clearly rules out pine warbler, even the biggest billed pine warbler, and the
Yeah.
big gray feet are not good for pine warbler either. It's got kind of orangey feet like a lot of the Setophaga warblers.
Yeah, and tanagers have big bills like that can
Hmm.
appear a little bit kind of hooked, but they're big and thick like that. And again, you know what? And it's my bias, but I could have maybe thrown female painted bunting in here.
Yeah, maybe
And
they are kind of olive. Yeah, Bill's
they
wrong
are
on that
kind of
one
like
too,
that.
though.
But the bill's wrong, and I think we are definitely seeing wing bars on this bird, which would rule out
Okay.
painted bunting, and the bill's just too long. I mean, painted bunting, even though it's got a more tanager-like bill than most of the. When I say tanager-like, it's got kind of a curved culmen. It's kind of thick,
Hmm.
but it's still a short finch-like
It's
bill. It
short.
doesn't.
Yeah, it's
It
short.
doesn't get in. It's stubby. It doesn't get into that territory.
Yeah, both of the
Really.
tanagers there, it's worth considering those. They are kind of this olive green color. They do. Western tanager does have wing bars. Scarlet
Yep.
tanager, some of the young birds can show fringing, which can approach wing bars. But again, the bill is a different shape. It's a thicker bill. It's a longer bill. It's a cardinal bill because our tanagers are cardinalids.
Yep.
So that it is the same length. It doesn't have that hook. That hook is classic Vireo, and so we got to consider Vireos here for this
Yeah.
bird. And you've got the two most obvious ones here: yellow-throated and wide-eyed.
Yeah, and one last thing about the tanagers that even though
Mhm.
they often do show gray feet like Vireos, um, the bills tend to be yellowish,
Yeah.
especially at the base. Whereas this bird is clearly blue gray. The bill is blue gray at the base, and
Mhm.
I always think of that as a kind of a Vireo thing as well. And
Mhm.
yeah, juvenile white-eyed Vireo. It's got the strong spectacles. And bright wing bars and some yellowish
A lot of
coloration.
yellow. Yep.
But yellow-throated vireo is very aptly named, and the color is all concentrated up in the throat and the breast, and it's the opposite on white-eyed. White-eyed has a white throat, clean, and the yellow comes in on the underparts, especially on the flanks.
Yeah, it's kind of on the flanks underneath the wings for the most part on these birds. I do think that this mystery bird that we have, which I can clearly say is a
Oh, we can give it up. Yeah,
yellow-throated vireo.
it's a yellow-throated vireo.
I think there's some color abnormalities going on here. Typically, yellow-throated vireo, the yellow is concentrated on the breast, on the throat. It does kind of stop at the belly, and the belly is mostly white. The photo looks like it's got a bit of a green tinge. In
Yeah,
fact, all of the bird looks like the color in the photo is a little yellower than we would see in actuality. But the fact that as you said, Greg, the color, the yellow is concentrated on the chin, on the chest, as opposed to on the
yeah.
flanks in a white-eyed vireo, make this one a pretty straight ahead identification.
Yeah, I think so. And it's interesting because we get a lot of pine warblers, and every time we bring up pine warblers, I always bring up yellow-throated vireo because, especially in the southeast, in the pine forests, and in the winter,
Yeah.
you see reports of yellow-throated vireo in the winter, and it's like no, 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 no. Yellow-throated vireos are in the
Yeah.
Amazon, enjoying giant caterpillars and things, and
Yeah, you
all
used
of
to get a lot
those.
of them at the backyard bird count.
Yeah,
Yellow-throated
yeah.
vireo reports.
In the but not in the middle of winter.
Well,
Um,
backyard bird count is in February, so that's how you knew that they were pine warblers.
oh, fine, exactly. I see the
Yeah.
point you were trying to make. Yeah. All right.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. People would
Yes.
report
Yes.
yellow-throated vireo, and it would be pine warbler every time
Exactly. Every time it would be pine
because they
warbler,
don't
but
because they don't expect pine warblers to be as bright as they can be, especially in midwinter.
Oh yeah, and I mean, it's got the blue gray kind of wing
Mm-hmm.
panel,
Yeah.
with those
Yeah.
bright wing bars and the white
Mm-hmm.
belly and the bright yellow throat and the
Spectacles.
green
Yep.
head and the spectacles. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they really are very similar.
Yeah. And pine
And
warbler, to its credit, is probably the most Vireo-esque of the
I would
warblers, and by
agree.
that I mean when you watch warblers versus foraging versus watching Vireos foraging. Vireos tend to be more methodical. They tend to be slower. They don't flit as much. They'll move
Yep.
kind of along a branch in this kind of very slow way, similar to a tanager, for
Yeah.
that matter. Whereas warblers will be flitty and fast. Pine warbler is a slow, kind of sluggish warbler. They
Yeah.
do move more like a vireo, not as slow as a vireo, but they do kind of have that vireo-esque movements to them, and so people will mistake those for the most part. But the color of the bear parts and the shape of the bill is going to get you
Yeah.
right every time on those two.
Yeah. Alrighty. We're going back out west.
Mm. Lawrence Gardella suggests that Philly vireo is another comparison species that would be worth considering.
You know
Yes,
what?
certainly.
It would be, except for those that bright spectacles.
Yeah,
Well,
the bright spectacles.
two things. I mean, one, the bright spectacles, but also the bill size. I mean, one of the things about Philly
Yeah,
is
yeah,
that
I agree with that.
it's got this small kind of cute look to it. It's got kind of a
Mm-hmm.
small bill, like kind of like Bell's Vireo. It's kind of a
Yeah,
daintier bird. Yellow-throated Vireo is kind of a hefty bird.
it
You know,
is.
it's
It
kind of
is.
thick and
Reminds me a lot of
sluggish.
like blue-headed vireos, the solitary vireo complex. Yellow-throated looks more like that, which is kind of a compact,
Abs-
short, thick bill, as opposed to
yeah,
kind of a longer, red-eyed vireo-esque kind of look that Philly
agreed.
has. Yeah,
Agreed. And but yeah, Philly Vireo, definitely. But
can be very
and
yellow,
yeah, it
not
can
as
be,
yellow,
but
but
yeah,
can be very yellow.
doesn't have the wing bars.
Mm-hmm.
But and you know, I felt pretty strongly there, and that you can see the wing bars on this bird. So I mean that if you could see wing bars, that rules out Philly and red eyed and warbling and all of those. So we're going to go to Superior, Arizona, and this one's fun because
Another fall migration,
it's
wintry slash dry country sparrow bird that
yeah,
spends the winter in that part of the continent.
yeah, and there's a lot going on here, and nothing at all at the same time.
Yeah, so this I feel like I was able to identify this bird pretty quickly, just even though there isn't a lot to go on. It's vibe, a lot of it.
Yes.
We're looking at a sparrow here. It's got a big bill, big gray bill. It's got very
Mm-hmm.
strong legs. It's got and honestly, I think the photo on the left is more illustrative than the photo on in the water
Mm-hmm.
for identifying this bird. That helped a lot because you can see the pattern on the face a little bit better on the photo on the left. And
Mm-hmm.
honestly, if you hadn't told me that these were the same, I might not think they're the same the same bird because
Yeah.
the bill feels a little bit differently shaped. The just the way the bird is sitting feels quite different. But this feels like a very young bird. This feels like a bird in the middle of molt. This is a first year bird that is coming into some semblance of adult plumage here. You can see a lot of the kind of messy streaking on the front of the bird on the left. The streaking is going away. It's being replaced by what look like kind of pale grayish feathers.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't get away from that pattern on the face. It looks really, really interesting. A lot of lines there, a lot of lines on the crown, lines through the eye. Got a big white eyebrow. Some
Yep.
neat stuff.
Yeah, and the broad kind of whitish arc under the eye
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and the median stripe through the crown really give it give it a very stripy look.
Yeah.
And so when we think of stripy kind of sparrow birds that aren't obviously rufous, because there are a bunch of them, like even including chipping sparrow and
Mm-hmm.
so on. But there's usually some rufous. Now this wouldn't be any of those like chipping or clay colored or anything. This bird is just way too bulky, and the bird is too big,
It's
and
lanky.
the bill
Look at
is
how
too
big
big
those
and
legs
lanky
are.
and
Yeah.
long. But we do have some kind of streaky birds with strong face patterns to look at in Arizona. So yeah, I think the first bird we can get rid of here is thick-billed longspur. I mean, just the shape alone. The shape alone just doesn't look right, and plus it's got kind of a pinkish bill. But it can show that strongish supercilium.
Yeah, it's
But
important to note that longspurs are not, even though they look
yeah,
like sparrows, they are not
they are
closely
not.
related to sparrows.
No.
And it's sort of like the Vireo warbler thing. Like people thought
Yep.
that when they were closely related, we sort of gave them a little more attention. We used to compare them more closely to those things. But when you look at a longspur, it's a completely different shape. It's got a long body, it's got a short tail and long wings.
Long
This is like a
wings.
nomadic bird. This is a bird that spends its time on the open parts of the continent.
Yep.
Not a sparrow shape, which tend to be sort of shorter winged, tend to be longer tailed. So it's a very different look to the bird, and I think that's one of the things we appreciate more, that we have moved longspurs away from the sparrows
Yeah.
in this passerine taxonomy.
And one thing that I noticed, longspurs versus sparrows, and sometimes we get to see them together on the lakefront and the beaches and so on, is that sparrows tend to hop and longspurs walk and creep. They kind of they creep along like least sandpipers. It's
or pipits or like all those kind of, or larks, like those open country birds, all kind of like walk and creep. And whereas sparrows will, as you said, Greg, hop.
They tend to hop. So another bird with the strong face pattern and the big bill and a lot of streaking and everything going on is lark bunting, and it's boy, there's a lot going on here that's similar with lark bunting, except one thing, and that is that big white patch on the wing. Now, lark bunting, that white patch can be sometimes hard to see, but as the bird moves around, eventually it's going to give you a look at it. And in I'm saying in young, in a young bird, but it's there and you'll see it. And it's not, once you see that, you're not going to mistake it for anything else.
Lark bunting, another bird that's sort of superficially similar to the sparrows, but it's shaped quite a bit differently with a much shorter tail, much more compact bird. Like the rest of it. What family is lark bunting? Is a sparrow though, isn't it? But they've got a massive bill. Lark bunting generally, big pale colored bill, almost like a grosbeak. And this bird does not have it. It's got a kind of a more delicate is the word I'm looking for, maybe. Sparrow bill.
Yeah, just not as thick.
Not as
little more like regular, what we think of as a regular sparrow.
Regular
bill.
sparrow.
Normal
sparrow bill.
regular. So when we get down to sparrows with a white median crown stripe, it really kind of rules out a whole bunch of things, including another bird that would be possibly mistaken for it in juvenile plumage there, a vesper sparrow. So we can land on lark sparrow pretty quickly. I think just by looking at that pale crown stripe, that white crown stripe, I should say. And some of the other sparrow birds or sparrow-like birds that would have a white median stripe on the crown like that's pretty bold, would be clay colored, but again, this is not a clay colored sparrow. It takes an instant.
Another southwestern bird that might be worth thinking about too is rufous winged sparrow, but that would have rufous on the wings, as the name suggests. A little more color, especially around the shoulders. But it's another bird with a white, or kind of a gray medium crown. Not as much going on the face as well.
Nowhere near as much going on the face. If a lark sparrow flies or just moves around, as they move around, they flick their tails open. They have long tails with broad white tips on the outer tail feathers. and that stands out quite a bit. And and that's longspurs too. They have white in the tail quite a bit, and but as we said, not really going to mistake a larkspur for a longspur if you're looking at it for very long.
Yeah, I mean, just the legs alone are very different. Larkspur has these massive, very strong legs. And going back to that photo, Greg, if you want to jot back,
Sure.
this is a young bird. It doesn't have all the pattern, but you can definitely see on the photo on the left, you can start to see that kind of classic lark sparrow face pattern, which is so distinctive in that species,
And
starting to come in. You can see shadows of it, and that's just going to get more and more prominent as the bird ages.
absolutely, and that's that's something that we point out here a good amount, is that with young birds like this, you kind of, especially like with warblers, with first winter warblers, you kind of have to look through what you're seeing and imagine what it will look like after its next molt. And if you can sort of imagine that, like if you look at this, as Nate said, you look at the bird on the left there, you can really see the lark sparrow pattern, even though it's not fully developed. It's
Right.
there.
It's like halfway
And-
there. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's there's no color to it yet, but it's definitely there. And even younger, I once came across some lark sparrows that were pretty much like right out of the nest, and boy, if it weren't for the parents hanging around them and feeding them, that was a really confusing bird. They were sitting in
I'm
a
sure.
sandy trail in front of us, and I sat there for a good couple of minutes like, what the hell is this thing? But yeah, it's amazing how such a strikingly plumaged bird can be quite difficult.
Yeah, that juvenile plumage, that very first set of feathers that a lot of passerines get before they do their fall molt, they don't hold it very long, but it can be very confusing, and it isn't well illustrated in a lot of field guides, frankly, because they hold on to it for such a brief time. It's almost not worth it. But it can be tough. As we've said before, even earlier this year. If you see what is very clearly a young bird and you can't identify it, just kind of sit tight and wait for those parents to come back, and then you'll be able to identify that thing.
Yeah, and we talked
Make it
earlier
easy
a
on
lot
yourself.
we talked a lot about earlier about warblers, and some of the warblers, but particularly yellow rumped. There's always like a little movement. It's not very much at all, but it's regular and it's noticeable, of yellow rump warblers in juvenile plumage, which looks nothing like what you think of a yellow
Very
rump
heavy
warbler.
streaking. Yeah.
And they're very, very confusing. I mean, and sometimes, to make it even more confusing, and Cape Mays do this too, they hang on to that for a long time, and you'll find them like even in April and May sometimes with this just heavy streaking all over, and they don't look like anything in the field guide. It's very confusing birds. Well, that's all of our birds for today. We did it again. We got a minute left here, so if you guys, you got anything you want to say, got a question, now's the time to do it. And while we're waiting for you, if you enjoy this program and if you like what we do and the best natural history podcast on the planet, the American Birding Podcast with our host Nate Swick right over there, come on over to aba.org and hit the join button. You'll have no problem finding it on our website. We would love to have you join and be a part of the club, so to speak. You'll get access to all of our magazines and ABA Community, ABA NARBA. If you like following rare bird sightings across the ABA area, NARBA's the place to be. So yeah, we'd love to have you.
Yeah, absolutely. aba.org/join. And also, if you're interested in when we're going to be doing one of these programs next, please go to aba.org and sign up for Flight Calls, our newsletter. And we will send you a nice email notification when we are planning on running What's This Bird live again. It's generally every 2 weeks, but sometimes stuff comes up. Hopefully, we'll be back in a couple weeks to talk birds.
Planning on it,
as always.
Planning on maybe talking about some hawks. Maybe I'll get some new pictures by then that we can throw in there. Because hawk season's about to pop for us. I'm looking forward to it. Hawk watching is one of my favorite types of forms of birding.
Absolutely. Well, folks, we'll be back in a couple weeks. Please look for us then. Subscribe to ABA on YouTube, and or like us on Facebook. And we'll see you in a couple weeks. Back to talk about some more birds.
Good birding, everybody.